Hello, Scorpio. This is a forecast for Scorpio rising and Scorpio moon sign for November 2021. So, Scorpio, your ruling planet, Ketu, continues to transit through your sign with your other ruling planet, Mars, in your 12th sign in Libra. And so, this is a bit complex, no doubt, because on the one hand, Ketu in your sign is itself showing some hidden dynamics at play and some changes that are going on from within that may also express itself in changes without, but it's definitely a more an inside job. And there might be some need to kind of look at what's not working anymore to get rid of what's not working or what's not you, and clearing the blocks to who you really are in a practical way, maybe even, but obviously with Ketu, it's always in a more spiritual way. So it's like removing who you are not so you can tap into who you really are, who you truly are at your core. So that's Ketu's transit, and it's been going on for some time, over a year, and continues till next April. So it's a process. It's a slow process. And actually, it's a very strengthening process for you, Scorpio, because Ketu is your ruler. But the other side of that is that Mars is in also a very hidden place in your chart now, in the 12th sign, which is like Ketu. It's very much like that kind of liberation space. So, but Mars is like more wishing to externalize and to make something happen. And Mars in the 12th is not an easy transit in many ways because it doesn't make things happen so easily. It doesn't externalize things. And if it does, it's externalizing things maybe that you're not comfortable with, because the 12th house is all about your subconscious. And, you know, it could also represent hidden enemies, which basically are just a reflection of your own inner demons, your own saboteur. So when you have Mars in the 11th, or sorry, Mars in the 12th, sometimes it can be what I call a shoot yourself in the foot kind of dynamic, where you don't really understand the dynamics, what's going on in your subconscious, and Mars externalizing those can really get you triggered and maybe even get you quite impulsively reacting to it and doing things that you later regret. So it's important not to do those things, of course. And if you do, it's okay. Just recognize why you did it, maybe, and recognize it as Mars's tendency in the 12th to kind of maybe again just shoot yourself in the foot, or act too quickly, or whatever it is, kind of bolt before really you've thought about it. So that's something to be mindful of. And the fact as well that Mars, your ruler, is combust as well, and has been for some time. And now in the 12th house, it's all just not seen. You know, you're not being seen is the issue. Because when you add that to the fact that Ketu, which is again the more hidden aspect of your being transiting your sign, it's again a more invisibility going on. So not being seen, in other words, might be a bit frustrating for you now, you know, because of Mars more so. When Mars then subsequently moves into Scorpio in December and January, then, well, that's more externalizing. That's more strength, that you're bringing the inner strength out. Right now, it's maybe not coming out so easy, and you might try something and it just doesn't, you just don't come off well. So that's something to be mindful of generally in November. And generally as well, something to be mindful of is your energy is just not quite there. Sleep might be an issue right now because of Mars in the 12th, as well as the sun. So a combust Mars in the 12th can show that you're just not getting good quality sleep. And so if you're not feeling 100% because of that, that could be an issue. So that's something to be mindful of in general for the month of November. The sun in the 12th is not the greatest position for the sun. Let's be honest about it. The sun is your 10th lord. And so Scorpio, you do like to be admired for what you do. And when the sun is in the 12th house, you're not actually even seen for what you do, let alone admired. So you might have to just accept maybe being a bit more invisible at this time, and not really quite, not just not seen for what you do, but or admired or recognized for what you do, but actually not being even clear about what you're doing. Because the sun in the 12th again is hidden, and the 10th is very much about your direction and career. So you just might not be very clear about that at the moment. And it's just a month where this uncertainty is there, because, and even actually only just the first couple of weeks, because by mid-month, the sun moves into your sign. So I'll talk about that in a while, but that's a much stronger position. Like, sun is very powerful in your sign, and it will light you up and give you and charge you up for the year ahead. So actually, even though November starts off as a very uncertain, very hidden period, by mid-month and into December, especially with the sun and then Mars moving into your sign, into Scorpio, this is a very powerful time you're coming into. So I would actually use this downtime in a way, or this maybe period of not being seen, to prepare the ground for that kind of coming out. And not just coming out in terms of practically right now, but in terms of all of the things that you've been working on in the background for the last year with Ketu there in your sign, because the sun now coming back to where Ketu is, you know, the sun takes a year, of course, to go around the zodiac. And so a year ago, Ketu was just, you know, moving in here, but now it's moved through your sign pretty much. All of that processing you've been doing in the background, all of that inner work and clearing you've been doing, preparing the ground, can now be brought out. You know, you can really shine basically from the end of November, but especially in December. So I would take advantage of this sort of quiet time and try and get as much sleep as possible. So that's how the setup is for the beginning of the month. Let's move it forward to the new moon on the 4th, which is an important new moon. Every new moon is, but this one is particularly because it is very important in terms of the Hindu calendar. It's called Diwali, which is the festival of lights, because it is the darkest time of the year. Now, November is usually the darkest time of the year because the sun is in Libra. The moon then comes to join the sun in Libra, which is the dark moon. So you have a weak sun and a dark moon, or a weak moon. And this year it's even weaker because we have Jupiter, which is our other light. You have the sun and moon, which is our more obvious lights guiding us, but we have Jupiter, which is our inner light, our inner guide, our intuition, our inspiration. And all of these three, what are termed sattvic or balanced planets, guiding us, are all weak in November. So this year is particularly weak in terms of being guided, having proper guidance, being clear about where we're going. And for you, Scorpio, because they're in these signs, the 12th sign in particular, really activated, is also very hidden, then there's not a lot of clarity about where you're going and what you're doing. And you just have to trust that actually this is a time to not be clear about it, but that clarity will come. It's always darkest before the dawn is the saying. And this applies to you, Scorpio, this month, the first couple of weeks of the month, more than anything. And for this new moon on the 4th of November. So the 4th of November, the new moon is in Libra in the lunar mansion Swati, which itself can be very scattered, and your energy could be a bit scattered right now. And in terms of what you're doing, the sun being your career, your actions you're taking, the moon being your sense of purpose, when they come together for the new moon in your 12th sign, again, you're just lacking that sense of clarity and purpose in what you're doing. And so the best thing, of course, is to do nothing, is to you know, be still. The 12th house is very much about being still, meditation, tapping into the you know, subconscious, and not getting too frustrated, because this is another part of the dynamic after this new moon, especially. Mars, your ruler, is coming into an exact square to Saturn in your 3rd house. Now, this could be potentially quite frustrating for you, Scorpio. There's just no denying this. But if you could channel this in a more productive, focused way, you could achieve a great deal. If, however, you are scattering your energy after this new moon around this 4th of November and for the following month, then you're just going to further deplete yourself. So the new moon on the 4th then subsequently sees the moon then go into your sign, Scorpio, into its weakest place. So you have the sun debilitated, the moon debilitated, Jupiter debilitated. And this dynamic now building between your 3rd house of effort and willfulness and confidence, aspecting your 12th house of lack of clarity and uncertainty and direction. You know, you could see how this could lead to potential frustration for you, where you're not really clear about where you're going, and yet you still have to try and make an effort in getting there and focusing on what you're doing in the moment. So this is when it builds, and especially into the 10th, and I'll show you how that plays out. Before then, though, the moon then joins Venus, which is in your 2nd sign, and I want to highlight that as well on the 7th, 8th, 9th of the month, we have moon with Venus. Now, Venus is in Sagittarius, your second sign, your partner, financial situation. There's some negotiation to be done there. And of course, Venus rules your 12th sign where all of these planets are lining up. But Venus in the second sign is very much about finances and attracting the resources and the finances into your life for you to do the thing that you want to do, but also what your partner wants to do. So there's some, or any partner, like a business partner or any other romantic relationship or anything like that, your marriage partner, there's like a negotiation to be had here, because Venus will stay a long time in Sagittarius. It will be in Sagittarius in November. It will return here by the end of December and stay here retrograde in January and until February. It won't move out until February. So it's got many months here. It's usually only a month in a sign or so. So there's a whole, obviously, and especially into the new year, this whole sort of kind of recalibration of your financial situation in tandem with your partner. So your partner will also obviously be going through a lot of changes financially. And of course, that will affect you as well in terms of your financial setup. So just being open to that now, and maybe the moon joining Venus here by the 7th, 8th of November would be a time to be kind of cognizant of that. And again, now that you're aware that this is a long-term transit and there's a whole reevaluation going on in the weeks to follow, and that you're set up for that, that you're aware of that potential and the benefit of doing that as well, of course. The moon then joins Saturn on the 10th, and this is the kind of sticking point in the month, really. And one of the major sticking points in the year, actually. I've been looking at this for a while, and it's quite intense because Saturn is aspecting Mars, your ruler, exact same degree, 13 degrees, and Mercury is the same degree as Mars, 13 degrees. So the moon joins Saturn as well. So this is quite tense. And again, it's about give and take more than anything, because the third house is very much about what you want to do. And, you want to go for something, grab something by the, and go for it. But the 12th house is asking you to let go. So they're two quite almost like, completely different signs. They're just very different. The third house is about being selfish and going for something. And you might be, actually looking at your own selfishness now as well and how that's impacting other people. Because then the 12th house is about surrendering and giving. And so it's like give and take, basically. There's a real need to give and take here. And because they're in an exact aspect now, and Mercury is exactly conjunct your ruler Mars, it could be a bit frustrating because you might not be getting what you want. And your selfishness is not only not getting you what you want, but it's also being selfish, and you're not giving enough maybe, or you're giving too much and then you want more that you're not getting. All of these dynamics can play out, basically. So it's important to be mindful around the 10th, especially of November. So that definitely mark your diary or calendar with the 10th of November as a red flag day. The moon then continues to wax and build in strength and then come to its fullest in Taurus. And now I'm going to highlight really strong dynamic that's going on here, and has been for the whole year and continues into next year. And that is the nodes in your 1st and 7th signs. So you've been going through a lot of personal changes, as I said, but they're very internal changes. But this is also affecting how you're engaging with other people, how you relate to others. And of course, relating to others might be exaggerated right now because of the North Node in your 7th sign. So you might be really focusing on the other and not as much on yourself. And you might even be neglecting yourself and what you need to do for yourself. And or like that, again, that sense of being invisible. Now, the changes that are happening here are quite interesting because the sun has moved into your sign by the 16th of November. So it actually lights you up in another way. But again, the sun is with Ketu, which is the shadow. So what is it lighting up? It's lighting up the shadow. It's lighting up the hidden parts of you. It's lighting up your secrets, and it's lighting up the past. So it's kind of bringing the past to the forefront while you're processing things, while you're going through the changes that you're going through with your partner or with others in general. And this now begins on the 19th of November with the full moon and an almost total lunar eclipse. It's nearly almost total. It is a partial, but it's almost total lunar in your 7th sign, exalted at 3 degrees. So this is a bit of a mixed bag. And so there's many good things about this, but there's a lot of complexity about it as well. So the first thing is that it is exalted. So it's highly dignified moon. It's in Taurus in your seventh sign. So enjoyable. All of that's good. It's intense. And then when you put Rahu with it, it creates even more intensity and maybe too much intensity. And that could lead to sort of complications and maybe a sense of lack, because Rahu's tendency is to be all or nothing, of course. And a sense of overindulgence, for example, will only lead to lack, will lead to a kind of a drop in pleasure and in happiness. So it's kind of like being mindful of keeping this kind of even keel, I would say. Like if you're doing anything, indulging yourself in any way with your partner or any partners, anyone else, anything else, that you don't go overboard, basically, especially on the 19th. Because now this opens up an eclipse window, 2-week window, where the next eclipse, a really important eclipse for you for the whole year, occurs in your sign on the 4th of December in Scorpio. So if you have your rising degree, or if it's your moon here in Scorpio, anywhere near 18 degrees of Scorpio or 3 degrees of Scorpio, or opposite 3 degrees or 18 degrees of Taurus moon, or whatever it might be, any planets there, I'm assuming that you have your ascendant or moon, if you're listening to this, in Scorpio. But if your degrees are actually around 3 degrees or 18 degrees or thereabouts, obviously, therefore, these eclipses are going to impact you a lot more. If you're also in a cycle of the nodes, even more so. So that's something to be mindful of. So this full moon partial eclipse, almost total, is in Kritika, 3 degrees of Taurus. And it's all about actually cutting out something more than it is about anything. You know, yes, it's about enjoyments, but really the moon is exalted in Kritika because it's more about cutting out anything that's not working, you know. Any negativity at all, anything that's negatively impacting you, any kind of anything would be good to cut out. And actually, this is what this eclipse is asking of you anyway. So it's about cutting out those things that are in the way of your happiness. And sometimes cutting them out means gorging on them. Sometimes you have to actually go there to really experience it. If you're in a Rahu cycle, that would certainly be the case. If you're in a Ketu cycle, you might be more willing to let go and not really go there anyway. So it really just depends. So let me just show you how this pans out. The first thing to change, there's a couple of things that change in the days subsequent to this full moon, key things. So the first thing is that Jupiter on the 20th moves into Aquarius. And then on the 21st, Mercury moves into Scorpio, into your sign. So there's some key shifts now, and Mars will move into your sign as well. And that means all the planets will be with the nodes and really highlighting, again, the changes that you're going through personally and in your relationships, and how that impacts your happiness and your home environment. And all of these things will be majorly impacted. And in a positive way, because Jupiter now is moving into your 4th sign on the 20th. Now, it's just moving in, so it hasn't picked up strength yet. It's not going to be strong really in November, not until December does it pick up strength. And even then, it's got kind of like an interim phase, but still, it's a much better position because it's no longer debilitated. No, it's no longer getting the mitigating factor from Saturn, the restraint that has mitigated that. And even though it's in Aquarius now, coming out of its debilitation, it's still in Saturn's domain. So that's another thing to factor in. But it's still like in your 4th sign, and the 4th sign, Jupiter, is very much about some improvement in your home life that actually improves your happiness, increases your happiness and well-being. So that's never a bad thing, right? So this is a more positive situation, leading to an even more positive situation in April next year. So whatever happens over the winter months then leads to a better situation in April and for the following year, because Jupiter will be in a very strong position in your 5th sign, aspecting your sign. So this will be a very positive transition in Aquarius, leading to a much more positive situation next spring. So this is, again, even though it's a very dark time in November, there's something shifting around in this darkness. There's some new thing coming in, and you will feel this by the end of the month, and especially into December, as the sun transits your sign. This is a powerful time for you, Scorpio. Yes, it's a powerful time to make changes also. And when you're feeling more powerful, you can more easily make the changes that are necessary and get rid of the things that need to be got rid of in order for you to improve yourself and your life. So that's definitely more positive. Mercury, like I said, is in your sign as well, and it will be involved in this upcoming eclipse, which I actually want to show you now. So by the 4th of December, Mars will have finished its transit in your sign, and it will be about to move into will have finished its transit in Libra, your 12th sign, and in a very kind of unclear situation, coming into great strength in Scorpio on the 4th of December, on the same day as an eclipse, a total solar eclipse in your sign at 18 degrees on the 4th of December. Now, I'm bringing it up now, even though I'm going to talk more about this in the December report, because, you know, to really get a sense of the changes that are coming about from the full moon and eclipse in your 7th sign, you really have to understand what's going on in your 1st sign, because they're tied together. They're a pair. So basically, once you begin to see that you need to change the way you're relating and what you're doing in that respect, that then has a big impact on you personally, where you have to then change who you are and how you relate. It's not just about the other, it's about you in this situation, that you have to make the changes. There's very personal changes that you have to make, and this will impact changes as well in your career, because and how you express yourself, because this is your 10th lord. The sun is eclipsed. The sun is your 10th lord, and it's eclipsed, you know, by Ketu, the south node, your ruler, and the moon is involved and Mercury is involved. There's a lot of change going on here for you in December, Scorpio. And the moon being your 9th lord is about, you know, what is your purpose here on the planet in the first place? So it's in a really important eclipse for you in your sign, whether this is your rising sign or moon sign, or maybe both. This could be really powerful for you, but it's not obviously powerful, and it creates, as what Ketu always does, creates this kind of paradoxical experience of, on the one hand, bringing clarity and insight, but on the other hand, it can obscure issues as well. You might lose perspective. So it's important to maybe step back from this whole process from the 19th of November through this December 4th and all around that period, as all of these changes are taking place internally, with the nodes creating this steep psychological shift in you and subsequently making changes in your life around you. And to be on board with that, to be cognizant of what these changes are and how you need to go about that. It's better to be still. It's better to be, you know, not doing too much during these days, especially on the 19th of November and the 4th of December. So again, I'll talk more about this eclipse because it's such an important one for you, Scorpio, and for everyone for the year next month. And but for now, I wish you all the very best for the month ahead. And until next time.